Welcome along to Moments That Matter. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about after what was a really, really fascinating round. I'm Jack Heverin. Monday morning edition for us this week as well. Derek Rucker on location at a gym because when he's not talking about basketball, he's teaching basketball.
That's right. And, man, we've got so much to get to. I've been waiting all morning to get to this show because there's a lot I got to get off of my chest, Jack.
It was interesting when we were talking about where we were going to start on today's show. We've decided to start with Tasmania and Illawarra. What does that game tell us more about? Does it tell us more about Illawarra or does it tell us more about Tasmania?
It clearly marks Illawarra and defines them as a powerhouse in this league. Rarely, in now the fourth year of Tasmania's existence, have we seen them get blown out of the water like we did on Saturday night. That was a comprehensive butt kicking by the Hawks. And, you know, Scott Roth, rarely do they come in unprepared. Rarely do they lack effort. But they showed a little bit of both in that game. And full credit to Illawarra and Justin Tatum. They keep looking for ways to be better. And when you go down to that arena, there's a lot of pressure on you as a visiting team to perform at the highest of levels just to stay in the game. We saw what Adelaide had to pull out of its hat to get a victory down there. So that's kind of the level that you need to be performing at to knock off the Hawks.
Coach Tatum spoke about it post-game as well, Derek. He said they score. They're a flat-out scoring team at the moment. So this is going to be the challenge for other teams in this competition is you've got to match up with them defensively, but then you've got to stop them offensively.
Well, I think so much of it revolves around the threat and the basketball class of Darius Days. He has filled in that spot vacated by Gary Clark really well. One of the things I liked about Clark was he was a selfless player and a really good basketball player. Well, Darius Days is a lot in that mold. You can see what Justin Tatum's type is in that position. And now you've got all these other pieces. And, of course, the league leader right now, I think, in the MVP running, Trey Kell III is playing amazing basketball, Jack. And it's made everyone around him so much better. Tyler Harvey is back to playing, you know, first or second team level basketball. Tatum must be so delighted with what he's seen early from his team that, you know, he's probably in a way like, can we hold back a little bit? We don't want to go too hard too early, but I think they've got the horses where that won't be an issue.
We don't do power rankings on this show. If we did, though, would you have Illawarra as the number one seed right now?
Definitely, and I think a lot of people were somewhat doubtful after they dropped that game against Adelaide, but we know the league is so tight, it's so competitive that those losses will occur. It's more about how you bounce back, and we saw a lot of the stronger teams in the competition bounce back this weekend after having disappointing losses at home.
What about Tasmania? Does the loss throw up some concerns for you? Not necessarily that they lost to Illawarra, but to me, it was the way they lost and the total lack of energy from this team.
There might be little red flags. I'm worried about their ability to score the basketball. Craig Sword was brought in as sort of a utility player, a guy that's going to defend well. I'm not sure what they need right now matches the job description that they gave for him. I think they need a bit more offensive punch. They need some perimeter shooting. And right now, I think 85 points in a game is a challenge for them. And if they don't get high-level efficiency from Doyle and or Crawford, it makes it really tough because the strength of this team over the past two seasons has been the excellent play of their locals. And if their locals are down, then Crawford and Doyle have to pick it up. And that wasn't the case on the weekend.
I was at John Cain Arena yesterday, saw Melbourne hammer Adelaide. They had 6 players in double figures. They celebrated Chris Goulding's 450th in style. That's more like it, Ruck. I think we all accept that Melbourne are going to be a very good team this year, one of the leading teams. And when they play like that, they're going to be very hard to stop.
Again, this is a team that came off a disappointing home loss to Cairns. And we know what Dean Vickerman does. We know how he gets down. And I just thought that anybody thought that Adelaide were going to go and win there and have a chance of winning that game, I thought they were somewhat delusional. That's a game Melbourne had to have. Keep in mind also, Matthew Dellavedova had a full week back on the training court, so he looked a lot better, I thought, yesterday. And now Melbourne United can start to prepare. This is where perennially they start to make their move, Jack. Start stringing off 4 or 5 victories in a row, 7 out of 8. This is how Dean Vickerman operates, and I wouldn't be surprised right now, by the time we hit Christmas, Jack, if they're not on top of the ladder.
We'll get to Southeast Melbourne, who are their opponents on Sunday, but that's going to be a very, very tough challenge for them. The Adelaide 36ers, I thought, looked really tired and really lethargic, and just wonder, Ruck, how much was taken out of their petrol tank on Friday night. It was a great win over Sydney, but it was electric. It was physically draining, clearly mentally draining as well. It almost felt like they were beaten before they walked in.
This is the hard part when you have these double game weekends or double game rounds. You have a big game at home, you knock off the Sydney Kings, but then you've got to regroup. And that's a learning process. And obviously, whatever transpired from that Friday night victory to Sunday, it wasn't the way they need to go about it in the future. But they need to learn from that. Okay, Coach Mike Wells is seeing this for the first time. He sees how his team has responded to the highs of Friday night. They didn't come out with the energy required to compete against a top-notch team. And you need to be able to do this if you're going to play in the postseason. You have to be able to bounce back from the lowest of lows and the highest of highs and be able to perform. Adelaide failed the first test. However, they're still well-placed. They're a really promising team, and they've got the talent to turn this around quickly. They're a smart team now, and I like what they've done down there.
But they can't defend like that. They can't give up 60 points in the paint.
No, and this has been a problem for a few teams, and there is a bit of a reversion to getting inside scoring going. And Adelaide is certainly somewhere where they capitalized against Sydney on Friday night, but then they got stung. And I was the one that came out saying I was concerned about Melbourne's front line scoring and their ability to score in the paint. Well, yesterday they proved me wrong, and Rob Lowe showed, hey, look, I still have some offensive skills. I can score some points. He was the player of the game yesterday. Hats off to him for a great performance.
For the Cairns Taipans, it was from the penthouse to the outhouse. They were excellent last weekend. This round, missed opportunities. A game at home on Thursday against the Perth Wildcats that they really should have banked. And then they were nowhere yesterday. Ruck, you saw them against Sydney at Kudos Bank Arena. And it's a bit of a setback, it feels like, because you've got to beat Perth and you've got to beat Sydney if you want to be considered one of the top teams.
That's correct. And I think the more disappointing loss of the two was the home one against Perth. And I think with all the momentum they had built over the first couple of rounds, that was a real chance to have an impact and climb up that ladder a bit. And then the game in Sydney, or the impending loss in Sydney, wouldn't have weighed as heavily on them. But instead, they dropped 2, Jack, and it's the roller coaster of this league. You cannot slip up. Now, look, they have some legitimate excuses. They are a far better team with Taron Armstrong in the lineup. We saw the adverse impact his absence had on Rob Edwards. Rob Edwards could not shake the Sydney Kings defense yesterday. He was 2 of 12 from the field, never found his way into that game. And it's evident that he is not a point guard. He needs someone out there that can direct the offense, especially against a really good defensive team like the Sydney Kings. But now Adam Ford's got to rally his troops. He's got to figure out a way to get Kyle Adnan playing to a sufficient level in the absence of Taron Armstrong so the team doesn't have the disappointing and embarrassing losses like yesterday.
Talking about bouncing back for Sydney, they did bounce back. Now, for those who are probably a little bit younger than us, just jump on YouTube and Google Ken Bruce has gone completely mad. It was an ad on TV back in the 90s. Shaun Bruce went completely mad at Kudos Bank Arena yesterday. 21 points, 6 of 6 from outside.
Well, that's what Bruce does. He comes up big when the team needs him, and without Jalen Adams in the lineup due to a bad back, Isaiah Liafa or Shaun Bruce was going to be needed to provide offensive punch off the bench. I thought Bruce actually was going to start the game but Gorgian decided to go with Tyler Robertson, which turned out to be a really good move.
Yep.
I like the way Robertson plays basketball. Good player, is going to have a long career in this league. But Shaun Bruce came in and provided the offensive punch, 6 of 6 from the three-point line. I know he's been disappointed with how he's been shooting the basketball, so it was really good to see him knock down some shots. Isaiah Liafa finally, Jack, knocked down a 3-ball to break that ice-cold streak that he was suffering from. And I thought overall that was a really professional and clinical victory by the Sydney Kings, the type Brian Gorgian would have been really pleased with, because they shut Cairns down in the second half on the defensive end. Just a total lockdown job.
And for some of the teams, Ruck, that we've been talking about that didn't make adjustments, it felt like the complete opposite for the Sydney Kings. It felt like they made some really good adjustments after Friday night.
They did, but now, Jack, they've got to adjust again, because how does this look when Jalen Adams comes back? They've got to get the ball popping, zipping from side to side. They've got to figure out sets and schemes where Jalen gets off of it early, and then he's confident enough in his teammates and in the system that he's going to get the ball back at critical times and be able to make plays. So I think there's still a development of trust on the offensive side. But the other part of it is when Jalen gets back in the lineup, he and they as a team need to continue to build on what we saw defensively yesterday so that they can get out in transition and get easy opportunities. That was a big shining light for them yesterday.
We talk a lot about the moments that mattered on this show. That's why we called it that. The most important moment for Brisbane was the final buzzer on Saturday night, because it meant they had their first win of the NBL25 season. You could just see the pressure valve release slightly from Justin Schuller and all the players.
Without a doubt. And they don't care about all the drama that was happening at Southeast Melbourne. They don't care how they got that win. Jack, they just needed one. They needed one. And now their fortunes changed slightly, okay? They've got New Zealand coming in here on Thursday night for a game at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre. That is a very winnable game. If they get that one, Jack, now they're 2-3. Things look significantly different compared to how it looked just a week ago at 0-3, headed down to Melbourne to play that game. So, hey, great job by Tyrell Harrison.
Yep.
We've been kind of waiting on this. He destroyed the Phoenix on the offensive glass. And these are the types of performances that Tyrell needs to make on the regular. I mean, obviously, we don't expect that type of rebounding, but somewhere in this ballpark is what I expect from Tyrell Harrison.
17 rebounds. Casey Prather, 15 and 6, played a really nice role. And James Bateman as well, Ruck. Let's just talk a little bit about him, because he's taken plenty of criticism to start the season. There's no doubt about that. Came off the bench on Saturday night. Did he just look like he played with more freedom and more belief? What did you see?
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily in agreement that he should come off the bench, but Justin Schuller would know better than me, and he made the right move. And you know, for me, Jack, it's like it's a relief to see Bateman play well. I don't know him, but I can relate to the amount of strain that he must have been feeling on the daily. So he came out there, he knocked down 6 threes. I believe he had 20 points in total. The only thing, Jack, is he was still a -10 in his time on the court. That's the only little red flag about that performance. So I'll keep an eye on it against New Zealand. He's got a really tough matchup this week against Parker Jackson Cartwright. But sometimes, Jack, all it takes is that much of a level of success to transform a player's belief in himself and his fortunes in the NBL.
We jumped on yesterday morning for a special emergency edition of NBL Now. It's now available online, and however you consume your podcasts, you can check that one out. But now that you've had another 24 hours to think about it, Ruck, Southeast Melbourne have got a press conference happening this morning, Monday morning, Melbourne time. Any additional thoughts?
Well, as I said yesterday, I thought that it was inevitable that this was going to happen for Mike Kelly. And now with Sam Mackinnon coming in, I'll be interested to see if he adjusts the style of play. How do they attack defensively? Sam is well aware of the defensive weaknesses and the liabilities in that lineup. Does he attack it from a personnel angle, or does he change things up with his schemes? Now, in Sam's short stint as a head coach with the Brisbane Bullets, he was willing to junk up the defenses a bit So I'm really curious to see how they come out and play. Not the ideal opponent first up.
Yeah.
A team now that is going to be putting the accelerator down. It's starting to find out who they are as a unit. Melbourne United are finding their championship identity again, I believe. It's going to be a great match Sunday. I'm actually going to be in the house, Jack. I'm not working, so it's one of those rare moments where we get to go to a game and just enjoy it for the game that it is.
Do you think that there's an opportunity for Sam here to unlock something with Nathan Sobey? Because they've got a really good relationship and they work together in Brisbane. Mike couldn't get it out of Nathan Sobey, or for whatever reason. Is there a chance here for, and Nathan as well, to kind of leave everything that was behind and look forward?
One of Sam Mackinnon's strengths as a coach, from what I've observed, is his ability to relate to players and his ability to read players and understand which each player's needs are, not only as a person, but as a basketball player. So I think Nathan Sobey will feel a lot more comfortable playing under Sam Mackinnon, and that's no knock on Mike. That's just more about the relationship between Sam and Nathan. But I think the big key is Sam needs to find out how to get the most out of Derek Walton Jr. They have an MVP level type point guard there, and they've got to figure out, how do we build this thing around him? How do I get the best out of him? Because if they unlock Derek Walton Jr., so much more positive ancillary actions and benefits are going to come out of that situation. Derek Walton is a high-level international point guard. They've got to utilize his skills and his talents much better than they have thus far.
Thumbs up, thumbs down to finish off the round. Let's start with the good stuff. Who's getting you thumbs up?
Thumbs up, obviously. I think it goes to the Illawarra Hawks. I just love the collective belief that they have as an outfit. Everybody comes in there, and Davo Hickey, Jack, he's coming off that bench. He's so confident. He's playing with such energy and enthusiasm and excitement. There's nothing worse when a guy is coming off the bench in that second unit and playing that hard and making so many things happen out on the floor. So full credit in general to them, the Illawarra Hawks, and more specifically to William Hickey.
I'm going to give my thumbs up to Bryce Cotton. I thought he was sensational against Cairns on Thursday night at the Cairns Convention Centre. I call him the benchmark. He's the best player in this competition, and that's a reminder of why.
Well, when you think Perth are down, Bryce has had an amazing ability over his 6 or 7 years in the competition to strike. And he struck the Taipans viciously. You saw, as soon as he gets a 4-point play, you know that it's on. And Bryce is just a wonderful player. He's a brilliant spokesperson, showman, everything that you want from the face of the league, one of the megastars of the league. But he just continues to amaze and dazzle. And, you know, as a former player, I've said it many times, he's my favorite player. I'm a fan of his. I love watching Bryce Cotton play. And
I'm going to go straight into my thumbs down because they kind of work together. I love Rob Edwards. He's one of my new favourite players. Bryce is probably my favourite. Everyone knows that. But Rob Edwards is not far behind. I love this guy. But Rob Edwards, for the thumbs down, learnt a valuable lesson on Thursday night, and that is do not trash talk Bryce Cotton because it will come back to bite you.
Well, this is a sensitive topic, right? Because we saw him mouthing off at the Melbourne United bench. Then he had the comments with Cotton early in the round. And then yesterday he got into it with the Kings bench. And the referees actually had to intervene and have a discussion with Rob about the way he went off at the Kings bench. And in particular, Brian Goorjian was really incensed. So, look, he's learning. He's trying to figure it out. I don't think there's any malice behind his actions. I think he's just a really, really high-strung, energized, charged-up type player, and this is how it manifests sometimes, but it doesn't mean that is acceptable. No doubt. And lessons learned, I think that's one for Rob, is you don't poke the bear when it's the best player in the competition. Your thumbs down? My thumbs down. I hate to sit on them like this, but the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, we've discussed the front office. We've discussed the Mike Kelly situation, but I'm going to give a thumbs down to the playing group. There's enough talent in that playing group. There's enough experience in that group. It is time for them to lift now. I don't care who's coaching you. You've got to lift as a group. You've got to come together work out how we are going to be better irrespective of what's going on around us. Somebody in that players group has to decide, hey, yo, I'm the leader. I'm going to stick my neck out here in front of the group and start laying it down the way this is going to be, our road to success, and how we are going to go about applying some rules so that we can get more out of this playing group. Because right now, Jack, I think they have top 6 talent, okay? But they've got to figure out a way right now. Sam's going to come in and provide some guidance, but ultimately it's got to start and end now with the playing group.
They're out of excuses, Ruck. Your point is a really good one. They are out of excuses now, that playing group. The coach is gone, and whether or not you think it was Mike Kelly's fault, but it's easy to kind of shift that blame towards the coach. Now that decision's been made, you got no one else left to blame. You've got to take that responsibility on yourself.
And look, Jack, in my playing career, of course, I went through moments where I disliked my coach and I wanted him fired. There's no doubt. Everyone goes through that as a player, and especially if you're one of the more prominent players on your team. Thoughts go through your head. This guy isn't doing it for me as a head coach. I'd like to go in a different direction. But with a potential change in direction comes a lot of other risks. You don't know if the new coach is down with your game. You don't know how it's going to project with the new coach out there. His system may not benefit your playing style. So this is where we find the Phoenix right now, and it's a risky position for the players. But now they've just got to come together, do what's required, be professional, and the bottom line is you must play better basketball.
And that challenge comes for them on Sunday when they play Melbourne United at John Cain Arena in the Throwdown. Ruck, have a great week. Nice to talk to you, and we'll see you in Melbourne on Saturday.
See you then, Jack.
Thanks for being with us on The Moments That Matter. There is a lot going on, including the Southeast Melbourne press conference this morning. The best way to stay up to date is nbl.com.au.